Using the Prospan shoring properly begins with assembly. Utilizing the spring-loaded plunger affixed to each end of the Prospan, insert one swivel end attachment into each end of the Prospan. Slide one aluminum whale plate over each end attachment and secure in place with the provided steel pin. Attach a lowering strap to each end of the Prospan. Prior to installing the Prospan pneumatic shoring, workers must determine the depth and width of the trench, as well as the soil classification of the trench. Once this information is determined, workers are required to consult the Prospan tabulated data. Tabulated data is a mandatory component of the excavation standard. It must be followed at all times. Tabulated data points out the horizontal and vertical placement requirements of the shoring and dictates whether plywood is a mandatory component or not. The information the worker is looking for can be found in the tabled data and in the illustrations provided. So, having consulted the tabulated data, workers can now begin installing the shoring. Prospan requires the upper level shoring to be placed no further than 2 feet down from the top of the trench. So, with the air source at the correct pressure and a worker on each side of the trench, the first Prospan is lowered to the 2-foot depth, leveled, and then pressurized. With the Prospan remaining pressurized, a worker descends the ladder, going no deeper than waist high to the Prospan. The worker then rotates the outer collar of the Prospan and inserts the tethered steel pin into the piston hole that is closest to the collar. The collar is then rotated until it firmly engages the pin. Once this is accomplished, the worker finger tightens the thumb screw. With the Prospan now locked in extension, the air pressure is exhausted and the air hose is removed. Shoring is placed in columns, and at minimum, 2 are required. Safe practices call for the upper shoring to be placed first. So, with the upper level shores in place, the worker must now focus their efforts on lower level placement. Tabulated data requires vertical placement to be no greater than 4 feet below the last level of the shoring. So, while remaining waist high to the upper installed Prospan, the above position workers lower down a second level Prospan. They level it and then pressurize it, as seen earlier. Once pressurized and the piston has stopped expanding, the worker descends the ladder and completes the installation process. As long as the worker remains positioned near this installed Prospan, he can remain there as the next Prospan is lowered, leveled, and pressurized. Once the task has been completed, the shoring must be removed from the trench in reverse order. With the lowering straps attached and the air hose connected, the worker in the trench calls for the air pressure to be reintroduced to the Prospan. With the air pressure having been reapplied, the worker loosens the thumb screw, rotates the outer collar away from the pin, and then pulls the pin from the piston. In order to remain safe, the worker must relocate to the adjacent column of shoring before exhausting the air pressure in the Prospan. This process is continued until all shoring has been safely removed from the trench.